Hello, Prince of Peace people. This is a kind of semi-devotional minute or hour. No, it's not an hour. Don't worry. Don't run away. Bad word. Bad, pastor. Bad. Don't ever say hour. Stacia and I were talking about devotion and doing personal devotion and private devotion, and there's differences there. And I've been talking to some of you who really like daily devotions and are like, yes, this is the best thing ever. Don't worry, I'm going to try to keep doing them, but there's some tech stuff and some schedule stuff that I need to figure out to make that happen. But largely, what you're getting from me in the daily devotions I do is a little slice of in-depth of what the text means in the broad sense, a little slice of then this is how you use this text devotionally from my perspective. And some of you find that really interesting and really helpful, and some of you are profoundly disoriented as I don't just start walking daily through little chunks of the Bible, or are like, oh man, he's going to take forever to get through these fruit of the Spirit or these 7 churches, and can you just shut up and do 3 a day? No. That's one kind, right? And again, inside of that too, there are devotions like the ones I do, where instead of telling you the devotional move and giving you directions, saying, now go do this, now pray this, it's sort of an interior reflection. How does that make me feel? I'm a guy, and I'm German, so I don't have feelings, right? So, that's why you get what you get. When I look at other people's devotions who put out professionally, I have a very critical eye because they literally do have the degree I have and do what I do. And so I think, man, I could do that. I could do that better. That's not what I would do. This is probably the wrong approach to devotions and why getting me printed devotions is so hard because, no, not so much. Because I think that's not where I go with it, or it's not devotionally helpful for me right now. That's one side. Some of you are really interested in studying books of the Bible in depth and walking through the book with an expert, and I am not. I can become a sometime expert on and point you in books, in direction of books, and actually read enough books to become a moderate, expert, good enough for your study. Not every day. Oh boy, howdy. But some of you like that, where you get the book, and this is Stacia, not to broadcast this all over the world, but this is her. She's got her books, she's got her study where it's walking her through this section, and it's super in depth, and then there's reflective questions so she can understand what's happened. That's one other kind of devotion. Some of you do devotions through music, and if I have to do devotions that aren't like what I'm doing currently, then sometimes I'll go for music. I'm more of a musically inclined person. I find it easier to relate or connect with God via music. So that's just kind of who I am and how I work. That's totally fine. Some of you have a few moments for a small amount of reflection. And I want to talk about this very briefly because I've talked about this before. There's a early church way to do devotions, and there is a, how to put it, 17th century or 18th century American Protestant way to do devotions, and I'm less a fan of that. The early church way is to just read some of the Bible until the Holy Spirit tells you to stop. And it could be one verse, it could be 2 verses, it could be 10 verses, it could be a chapter, it could be a whole book if it's a short book. And then you reflect on that. And if the Holy Spirit tells you to stop, by which you get, that's a very interesting thought. I need to keep thinking about that, doing those things. That's the Holy Spirit. Stop and mull it over. And don't start reading any more that day. The Protestant way is much more informed by the Enlightenment, and the Protestant way goes something like this. You just need to put in enough time to read the whole book, and once you understand the whole book, you understand God. And so it becomes very important to read a chapter a day or an hour a day, and it becomes important to do chronological studies. It becomes important to do read through the Bible in a year studies. It becomes important to do the sweet hour of prayer. None of those are bad in themselves, but the idea behind it is the more information you get, the more you can process through, the more of God you get. That's not actually a biblical promise. That's not a biblical worldview. And so if we get the why am I doing this, and you can answer, well, this is the way I like to do it, this is what connects with me, super. Don't ever stop, right? This is just like what Bible should I get? I don't know. Find one you like and make sure it's a translation and not a paraphrase, then read the cover off of it. In fact, buy two so that when you read the cover off the first one, you can just switch and it'll be identical, right? That's the Bible advice. But if the idea is, well, because the song told me to, or my Sunday school teacher told me to, or my DCE told me to, or my pastor told me to, or sorry, folks, but the really bad music on the Christian radio told me to, some of it's good, some of it isn't. There it is. But you already know that your pastor likes metal, so yeah, super. That early church move, I think, is really important, and to try it, and I'll say, why don't we try that? If you're doing the other one, just try that, because sometimes you're reading along and you're like, I need to stop, but I can't stop, because if I stop, then tomorrow I'll have too much to do. Well, if you need to stop, you need to stop, because that's the Holy Spirit. The last way, and in talking to Station, thinking about this, is some of us actually don't have devotion. And in the ancient world, in the early church, really up until about shortly after the time of Luther, it was not common to have daily devotions on your own. You're reading the Bible? No. The Bible is kept in the monasteries and the churches, and that's a problem, by the way. I'm not saying it should be. But everybody's illiterate, or a lot of people are illiterate, and if they aren't illiterate, they're illiterate in Latin. And then, things mount, right? Problems just mount up. So what was actually the case was daily service. And this is why the Roman Catholics have daily Mass. It's why the Roman Catholics have at least one church, usually in a diocese, that has morning, the hours, right? And the priest will come in and say Matins or Vespers in the morning or in the evening, or Compline, and they have sort of a monastic take. Frequently, again, these churches are associated with a monastic order. But for the bulk of Christian history, this daily sitting down with your own copy of the Bible to read and journal or read and think, this was not a thing. And so the spiritual growth and the connection with God came through ordered actual service at your church. And so you might drop in, and there are times, and again, I'll talk about this again in a sermon some point, we'll get to it, but when Jesus has the prayer of the publican or the tax collector, there's a morning's prayer service before, as people are headed out into the field, and then there's an evening prayer service, and certain specific prayers are spoken, and everybody just kind of stops in, checks in at the synagogue or the temple, depending where you are, and does the thing, and then they go. And that is the bulk of Christian history. And so there was a deep dependence on the professional clergy to feed people and make sure people actually got enough devotional meat. Now, I'm not saying we have to go back to this, but I am saying that at some point, for some of you, it might be actually helpful to, again, steal, or please just buy your own. If you're going to be like this, you can totally borrow one from church. But if you find out it is, you borrow a hymnal. Sorry, I'm not going to bury the lead. But borrow a hymnal from church and try singing or speaking, but probably for some of you, for some reason, it seems to be the music-y sorts anyway, who are geared into like this, right? But to actually have a little service and to steal a hymnal from church, and if it is you, then just go buy it. That's what I was trying to say. And return the hymnal to church, because we need them, and we need them back. If you borrowed one, we need it back at some point. They're not expensive. I mean, they're wildly expensive. It's not like a paperback. It's like $29 or $30 for a hymnal. And you can't get new blue ones, which is why we need them back. With that said, try singing Matins or Vespers or Compline. I know it's going to sound weird, but we've done enough church at home that maybe it won't be weird. Maybe it'll be normal for you. And maybe you'll think, oh man, that's nice. And before you do this, I'll say the rubrics. So rubric is Latin for red writing. Go through and read the rubrics, and it'll make sense. The little red writing in there, and if you want, you can go look up at the altar book up at church and go open it up, because it has more red writing than your pew editions, because I'm up front and I need to know what to do. If it's a new service, or I need a reminder because I've done Matins once every 10 years. Actually, Pastor Dave likes matins, and sometimes I come just into the sanctuary and we'll sing matins because that's the devotion I need for the day. And if you're ever there, it's kind of weird. And Pastor chanting without Marta, please, Marta, I need a tone. Somebody please get that poor guy a pitch pipe. With that said, it's something to try. It's something to try, and to read a psalm, the psalm of the day, or to just pick a psalm and to walk through it. It's what the church did for probably, I want to say about, take off 200 at the beginning and 200 at the end. So what is that, 1,500 years? So when we do devotions, and I love doing these daily devotions for you, and I'm super excited to do them, and I'm even more excited that you like them. I'm not going to be able to do all of those, but what I will be able to do is to point you in other directions. And to say, if you like this, maybe you should try some of this on the days when I'm not here. Or if you like the daily devotions because it's pastor and it's connecting, but the devotion is not connecting most of the time, maybe we can point you somewhere else. So I know there hasn't been a text for today, and I'm out of town, so I'm not putting up daily devotion stuff. And for those of you waiting for the next daily devotion, well, it's going to be on patience, so yeah, you're welcome. I thought I would just have this conversation because it came in as a realization as I was talking with Stacia about different kinds of devotions, and more in the line of what my kids need, and things that I'm intentionally trying to do to grow my own kids up. And yes, I am experimenting on them, and yes, I am kind of fussing with them spiritually, and it's not great, but anything you do is better than nothing. And please come, if you have kiddos, come talk to me, or please talk to Lisa too. We're super excited about getting kids into the Word. So I'll stop yakking at you, and we can upload this and have you on your merry way. And God's blessings to you, and we'll see you back here for a real daily devotion at some point here in just a few days.